And if you're thinking to yourself, how come this guy kind of knows a lot about speaking and is passing on this information in these short daily podcasts? Well, let me just say that I'm Peter Stewart. I got a 30-year career in TV and radio presentation, production and training. And yeah, training. I've trained people in the BBC and elsewhere in Britain and around the world, particularly on the broadcast voice, how to speak for radio, how to get over a story, how to get over a message, how to communicate with people, how to make the best of your voice. We're not talking about a complete and utter, makeover or anything like that. I'm not a speech therapist. True story, just as a bit of a sidebar, just occurred to me. At the time of recording, about a week ago, last week, an editor at a radio station. I'm just being a little bit careful so as not to tell you too much because that would be breaking confidence. An editor at a radio station in the UK approached me and wanted me to give them some tips on how to help one of their members of staff. And they sent me some recordings of that particular person. And it has to be said, this particular person needed quite a little bit of help. But the request for help from their line manager was almost as though I could fix something just with a couple of sentences, just by saying, almost abracadabra, sprinkle a little bit of fairy dust, wave a magic wand, hand over a potion, say a spell, one or all of those things, and suddenly this person would sound like Samuel L. Jackson. As you know, it doesn't work that way. It needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of patience. Usually it needs kind of one-to-one work, individual help with somebody, to see them in the wild, as it were, see how they hold themselves naturally, see how they have a conversation with you without the pressure of perhaps being in a studio or doing exercises or reading a script. It takes quite a bit of hard work to get a better broadcast podcast and voice over voice. The clue's in the title of the episode, 795, and there's more to come as we continue. We've been speaking about warming up, haven't we, over the last several days. Let's look at cooling down. Yeah, today I've got for you the Cool-Down Low-Down on Get a Better Broadcast Podcast and Voice Over Voice. There's a need to ease yourself back to normality after extensive vocalising, kind of resetting to neutral rather than just stopping suddenly. You've used your voice a whole load over the previous hour, shift, show, perhaps been a little bit stressed, you've had adrenaline, you might have projected a little bit more, put on a character voice, perhaps been speaking to other delegates in a crowded conference hall, you've been teaching or preaching. Maybe your bright and happy or stern tone has been false. You've put it on because you've been on stage or in front of a class. So, de-stress by having a stretch. Get back to the norm by having a yawn. Return to the day-to-day, having a shake, a shimmy and a sway. Be more like the natural you by gliding down on the notes of zoooo. And those are my series of tips for a cool-down, low-down on Get a Better Broadcast Podcast and Voice Over Voice. Tomorrow, which I mentioned a couple of days ago, we're going to be moving on to a slightly different subject, more about your physical health. So you'll notice over the past several weeks we've concentrated really on your main articulators. We've moved from the larynx and we've talked about the tongue and the lips, your nasal cavity. Now we're going to be taking a bit of a step back. We're going to be enlarging the focus, if you like, to look at more of your frame. A little bit about breathing, also about stress, your physical stress and tension, how you can overcome that, how you can relax more, and all of these different things to do with your shoulder, your back, your ribs, your stomach, how you sit, how you stand, how you breathe. All of these things, which all put together will help you get a better broadcast podcast and voice over voice. Okay, we launch with that, with episode 796, Your Physical Health Tomorrow. From London, I'm Peter Stewart.